SkyDive Proximity Flight is inaccurately named. It's actually a wingsuit game, not a skydiving game. It was developed by Gaijin Entertainment, who you would know from seeing these box arts at pawn shops, but also today you would know them as the guys that made War Thunder. SkyDive is a much more simple game though. It was a passion project that spanned roughly 10 years, with concept work dating back to 2003. Back then, the small team of 12 people were experimenting with infrared cameras on PC, trying to figure out how to make a cool dragon flight game, and while they were struggling with that, Sony released the iToy. From that point on, the game became an experimental motion control flying prototype called Flight of Fancy, using the iToy on PS2. E3 2004 was just 3 weeks away, and they wanted to get a prototype ready for that, so with only $10,000, they scheduled 3 weeks to sit down and grind out the game. They got everyone together and worked for 80 hours a week until the prototype was complete. That's the state the game was in when it was first shown off at E3 2004. It was well received by players. They loved playing it in little bursts, getting to fly around as a dragon, but the development team eventually started to lose faith in the project. The way the game would hurt your arms if you played for too long, the incredible difficulty making combat or anything other than flying fun. For months after E3, they were unable to find a publisher, and as a result, there was no hope of getting it published on the PS2, which meant there was no hope of making their iToy-based game available to the public. Development was intermittent while Gaijin was working on other games like Wings of Prey. Years later, they revived the idea of a motion-controlled free-flight game inspired by their work on Wings, but this time, it was going to be a wingsuit and proximity base jumping game, with no combat necessary. They rebuilt the physics, the flight model, and the controls in their custom Dagor engine multiple times, eventually swapping development over to the PS3. Things really kicked off in 2011 when they began bringing in pro skydivers like Jockey and Halvor for consultation on realism and to provide motion capture data and physics tips. Fast forward to April 2011 and the game was announced as SkyDive Proximity Flight. You use the motion sensor in your controller to fly your wingsuit around doing tricks and completing preset challenges. You can use the analog stick for control as well, and you likely will for trick challenges, but for flying, playing with the 6-axis is just more fun. You can select from 14 different characters that all have different stats that completely change how the game handles. You'll end up flying and doing tricks in Italy, Switzerland, Halong Bay in Vietnam, the Grand Canyon, Eagle Mountain, Death Valley, Monkey Gorge, and Icy Ridge. The draw distance and world sizes are impressive. The character animations like the little wing things flapping through the wind are cool, the sun glare looks nice, the whole thing is a nice backdrop and world to fly through and do tricks in, and I'm happy to report that the flying feels amazing. But to truly understand the flying, you need to understand the tricks. Doing tricks is done by holding X and tilting your controller up, down, left, or right. If you're on 360, you can use the Kinect or the left analog stick on your controller, but that is literally it. There's 3 tricks: front flips, back flips, and barrel rolls in both directions. Spamming tricks isn't enough to complete the challenges. There's much more to this, and it's right in the name: proximity flight. Flying in close proximity to a wall gives you proximity points, where you get way more points for doing tricks when you're near a wall, or the ground, or trees. You also gain speed and get adrenaline, which is the game's boost. It's a game of risk versus reward. The closer you are to the obstacle, the more points you get. Do you risk doing that absurd turn so you can keep your proximity to the wall, or do you break away from it to catch up with the next wall? If you do that, you might not get enough boost to complete the distance challenge, or you might not get enough points to complete the points challenge. And some of these challenges get unbelievably difficult. I was stuck on this one for hours. It's an incredibly long journey down a cliff full of obstacles and narrow corridors, and you need to get 2.5 million points within a minute and 50 seconds. Basically, you need to do proximity tricks nearly endlessly and then get a perfect landing. If you crash or touch the wall, it's over. You need to get really good at these flight mechanics to do this. What matters isn't the feeling of the basic flying. What matters is the transition from flight to trick to trick, and trick to flight, and your own instincts to learn all of these subconsciously while you play. With time, you learn how to end the front flip to blast yourself downward to gain speed. You learn the turn radius while you're holding each of the tricks. You learn how much each trick slows you down and what gives you the biggest speed boost off a wall. You get a feel for how fast you're going and what to do when you're going too slow or need more height. I could sit here all day and explain each one, but it really does just come from playing. That's what makes the flying, the core and arguably only mechanic in this game, really fun. Timing your landings is hilariously janky. You'd think you've got to activate the parachute early enough and then land in the clear zone to get a successful landing, but nah. As long as you tap square before you smash into a somewhat ground-like surface, you get a landing bonus and finish the challenge. Since you have a time limit on the challenges, if you hit your points goal early enough, you can activate the parachute in the air and skip the parachute sequence, which saves you time. Speaking of challenges, let's check them out. You've got adrenaline races, routes, tricks, and freestyle. Adrenaline races are really fun. It's you versus 3 other NPCs in a race to the finish line. The smoke trails behind the racers makes every race feel epic, and these get hard. It's also an enormous missed opportunity. This would be the way to play the game if there was online or even local multiplayer, but alas, there is not. Still, it's fun. Routes are surprisingly fun as well. You fly through a series of glowing rings like Superman 64 as fast as possible without missing any, which is honestly really good for getting a hang of the gliding physics. And since those physics are so fun, it's much better than Superman 64. Tricks mode throws you into progressive challenges that get more and more difficult as you complete them, being told to hit specific flips, rolls, and proximity combos. Some are easy, but most are incredibly hard. And then freestyle is where you just pick any starting cliff and jump. You can build your own routes full of tricks and proximity runs, but that's about it. It's a practice mode that kind of shows off how big these environments are more than anything. That really is the gist of SkyDive Proximity Flight. It launched, got mediocre reviews, nobody played it, the online features died, and it was forgotten by time. But looking back on it today, it was alright. If you're itching for a reasonably okay 6-axis game to run through, SkyDive could be it, but there are better options, like Go Sports Ski. I used to spend hours in online multiplayer playing Go Sports Ski. I played Go Sports Ski from the day it launched to the final days of the servers. By the end, I would find myself sitting in the lobby, alone, for up to half an hour, just watching and waiting for somebody to join. Sometimes it would happen, sometimes it wouldn't. Usually it wouldn't. I love this thing though. Turning left and right requires slight tilts of the controller. Going fast is done by just holding your controller downward. Pushing your ski forward requires a downward jolt of your controller, which you can also do while turning to push with your left or right ski and jolting down at the same time. And then jumping requires you to transition from a downward tilt into an upward jolt. There's a bit of a learning curve in order to get good at gaining and maintaining speed, and when you first start playing you will crash a lot, but after a couple hours of playing the same 2 maps over and over again online, you do figure it out. As much as I love Go Sports Ski, it isn't a skydiving game. I just wanted to take a second to shout it out, because as a stupid child with a niche interest in nonsense motion-controlled PSN games, you couldn't imagine my excitement when they announced the sequel, Go Sports Skydiving. Go Sports Skydiving was developed by Lightweight Company, developers of the Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon game on PS2 and Hello Kitty for 3DS. Go Sports Skydiving released to a terrible reception, but IGN didn't like Go Sports Ski, so they are irrelevant. Launching into the game, you're greeted with the most epic skydiving montage you've ever seen, but once you actually get into the game... Alright, let's just start with the controls. You tilt the controller to slide your character, left, right, up, or down. Then, rotating your controller lets you spin, like you're sliding a Wii cursor left and right. Pushing L1 or R1 lets you grab with your left or right hand, and yanking upwards deploys your parachute. If you've ever played a 6-axis game, you already know what the issue is. There's no compass in the 6-axis controller. Rotating your controller left and right doesn't work at all, and that's a really big deal, where an enormous portion of the gameplay is rotating your character to match ghost positions. What you're looking at here is just one mode, formation mode. The way this works is a red ghost flashes for a quick second, and you need to slide over to it, then rotate into position, and then push either L1, R1, or both to grab hands. You've just got to match the shape and grab with the correct hand as quick as possible and finish as many formations as you can before you run out of time. If you enjoy that infuriating feeling of knowing exactly what to do but being unable to do it, Go Sports Skydiving is perfect. I've put my time into 6-axis games. I bought Lair day 1 and I finished it multiple times just because I liked it. I switched to PC gaming specifically so that I could turn on gyro aim with my controller. I love gyro, but this takes some practice. And practice, I did. Eventually, you get a feel for this. You start to learn that resetting your controller position after each formation is necessary. I found it helped to hold my controller directly in front of my eyeballs, blocking the bottom of my screen but allowing me to reorient my hands immediately. You need to do whatever you can to beat these missions. If you want an S rank, you have to complete 20 formations, which unlocks a secret mode. If you can manage to convince a friend or 3 to play this with you, there's also a formation mode where you pick a team, red or blue, and compete to complete the most formations. But instead, let's check out the actual landing. Landing is a separate challenge that you select from the menu. You don't transition from the jump to the landing in one go, which is a bit lame. That's alright though. Landing has 2 phases. Phase 1 is falling from the plane. You can hold L1 and R1 while you're jolting the controller around to do tricks. You gotta complete as many tricks as you can and make sure you have time to activate your parachute. You do that by launching your controller into the air. You can rack up a ton of points by activating this at the last possible second. If you want that S rank here, which you'll have to get in landing mode as well if you want that secret mode, then you've gotta get 10,000 points, which means you gotta get good at the tricks. The best way to do this is to aggressively tilt your controller until your diver is upside down. Then stop and hold that position. Then rotate your controller while you're upside down. That's how you get unbelievable moves. Once you activate your parachute, you're now in phase 2. You pull down on the left and right analog sticks to steer the parachute. You're just trying to glide down to the target. You can slide across flat surfaces by holding R1 when you reach the bottom, but that is really all there is to this. You're just watching the numbers and trying to time your landing so that you land in the circle. That's that. Before I show you the secret mode, let's check out the stages. They're not much more than a skybox, but they do look nice. There's the mountain range, the island, and the canyon, each of which have 2 or 3 different times of days. For landing, there's just the 2 islands. There's this one, and there's this one. Island A and Island B. Cool stuff. Extreme mode is what you unlock after S ranking everything, and well, it's the same as landing mode, except now you can land anywhere, and there's swirls of floating money everywhere. You jump out of the plane, use the motion sensor to collect money, and then pull the parachute. Then you just have to try to steer yourself into more floating money. Then you land. I found out later that you can crash into these targets to double how much money you get, which is cool, but what do you use the money for? Well, all the customization options are unlocked by default. There's no challenges or goals to complete in extreme mode. There's no online leaderboards. There's not even a total money counter to track how much you've collected over time as you play. It's per run. You're just collecting money for no reason. That's it. Well, there you go. That's every skydiving game on PS3. Both of them. Missed you guys. I'm back. Love you, and peace.